Hey guys, in today's video I'm going to show you how to make this 4-inch colorwork square with a little ghost on it. This size square is perfect to use on its own as a coaster, but of course you can use it in larger projects like blankets or sweaters. For this project I'll be using Hobby's Rainbow Cotton and Friends Cotton in 8/4, and I'll also be using a 2mm hook. If you want to follow along with the written pattern or the colorwork chart, you can find both of these for free on my blog, which is linked down in the description. To get started, we're going to do a foundation single crochet stitch. If you're unfamiliar with this stitch, there is a tutorial linked in the top right hand corner of the video. This chart is 28 stitches wide, so we need to do a total of 28 foundation single crochets. I always use these foundation stitches when I can, as I really don't like working into chains, and with this method you're actually working the foundation chain and the first row of single crochets at the same time. Once you're finished with those foundation single crochets, we'll finish the row with a chain 1 and then we'll turn ready for row 2. Now for the rest of the project, we're going to be working in single crochets the entire time. So we're just going to put a single crochet in every single stitch of the row, and then at the end of the row, we're going to chain 1 and turn. And for the next 3 rows, we're going to be working in this orange colour. Our colour work pattern doesn't actually start until the 4th row, so go ahead and work 3 rows of single crochet and meet me back here when you're done. So here we are at row 5, and we're going to start this row in the orange. We're going to do 15 single crochets in this orange colour. So I want you to go ahead and complete the first 14, and then I'll show you how we're going to do the colour change on the 15th stitch. That's my 14th stitch done, and for my 15th I'm going to continue as normal. I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and at this point I'm going to drop the orange yarn. I'm going to bring it to the front first, and then drop it and grab my white yarn, and I'm going to complete the single crochet with the white yarn. And that's how we're going to do our colour changes throughout. If you need a more in-depth tutorial, I'll leave a link in the top right hand corner of the video. We're now going to do 10 single crochets in white, and I'm going to crochet over the top of that loose end for a few stitches because that's going to make it easier when I come to weave it in at the end. So I'm completing 9 white single crochets as normal, and then I'll be doing the colour change on the 10th single crochet. So I'm doing that just as before, inserting my hook, yarning over, pulling up a loop, then bringing my white yarn to the front. And now I'm going to need a new bobbin of orange yarn because we don't want to carry the other orange across the row. So I've got a small ball wound up and I'm going to use that. And I'm going to complete my stitch with that new bobbin. And then I'm going to finish the rest of the row, which is 3 more single crochets in the orange yarn. And as always, I'm ending the row with a chain 1 and turning my work. For row 6, I'm going to continue in the orange yarn. I'm going to do 2 single crochets with my colour change being on the 2nd stitch. So I'm going to complete the stitch as normal until 2 loops are left on my hook. Bring my orange yarn to the front, and at this point I'm going to pick up this white yarn that's at the back of my work, and I'm going to complete the stitch with that yarn. Now if we look at the back of the work, we can see there is a loose strand there now. When we complete the next stitch, we need to make sure we're picking that up. So I'm inserting my hook into the stitch and making sure that that loose end is over the top of my hook as well. And then I'm just completing a single crochet as normal. And now you can see that that end is hidden. So that's my first white single crochet. I need to do a total of 14, so I need to do 13 more. And as I get to this orange section, I need to pick up this loose orange yarn at the back and carry that with me. So just as I did before, when I insert my hook, I need to make sure that orange yarn is on top of my hook. Even though I'm still working with the white yarn, I need to carry that one with me because I'm going to need to use it in a minute. So I need to do my colour change on this stitch. I'm still going to carry that orange yarn. And then when I have 2 loops left on my hook, I'm going to move the white yarn to the front. I'm going to gently pull on that orange yarn just to make sure that that loose strand isn't poking through the back of the stitches, but we don't want to pull too tight because that will bunch up our work. And then I'm just going to complete my stitch as normal by yarning over and pulling through both loops on my hook. I then need to do 12 more single crochets in this orange colour to get me to the end of the row, and I'll end the row with a chain 1 and turn. As we start working with multiple bobbins, it's important that we turn our work in the opposite direction at the end of each row to avoid tangles. So just make sure when you end an even row, you're turning your work in one direction, and when you end an odd row, you're turning in the opposite direction. I do have a whole video dedicated to avoiding yarn tangles when working with lots of bobbins, so if you are finding that that's a problem, do make sure to check that video out. For row 7, we're going to start with 11 single crochets in orange. And we are changing colour on this 11th stitch. So as always, bringing my orange yarn to the front. And I'm going to pick up this white yarn at the back, and this is going to be just like with the row before. I'm going to yarn over and pull through with that. And then we'll have that loose strand on the back, which we need to pick up when we complete the next stitch. And we need to do a total of 15 white single crochets. So we're going to do 14 more, changing colour back to orange on the last stitch. Now this colour change is happening in the exact same place as it did on the previous row, so there's not going to be any yarn that we need to carry along or any loose ends that we need to crochet over. We're just going to pick that up from the back, complete the stitch, and continue working doing these last 2 single crochets, and of course chain 1 and turn our work. Moving on to row 8, we're going to do 4 single crochets in the orange colour. So when we get to this third one, we need to pick up that white yarn at the back and carry that with us for the next 2 stitches. And we need to finish this last stitch with the white yarn, so bring the orange yarn to the front. Give a gentle pull on that white yarn to make sure it's not loose. And then finish the stitch. And then we need to do 14 single crochets in this white yarn. And we need to place our last white single crochet into an orange stitch. So we need to make sure we're picking up that orange yarn and carrying that underneath. And this is the stitch we're changing colour on. So we're going to complete the single crochet until we have 2 loops on a hook, bring the white yarn to the front, and then finish the stitch with the orange yarn. And then we'll go ahead and crochet across the rest of the row in the orange yarn, which should be 10 single crochets. And then at the end of the row, we'll chain 1 and turn. For row 9, we're going to start with 9 single crochets in orange. And we're going to change colour here, bringing our orange yarn to the front, picking up the white yarn from over here and completing the stitch. And remember, you need to pick up that loose strand at the back and crochet over it to hide it. And we're going to do a total of 13 single crochets in white. And then we're going to change colour here, bringing the white yarn to the front and picking up this orange yarn from further down the row, completing our stitch with that orange yarn. And then for the next 2 stitches, we need to crochet over the orange yarn to hide it. But we're going to complete the rest of the row, which is 6 single crochets using the orange yarn, and then chaining 1 and turning at the end of the row. Okay, getting started on row 10 now, and we're starting row 10 with 7 single crochets in orange yarn. And because we're about to move into a white section, we need to carry this white yarn with us, crocheting over it for this first stitch, or the first half of this first stitch, because we're going to change colour now, bringing our orange yarn to the front, picking up that white yarn, just gently pulling on it to make sure it's not loose, and then completing the stitch. And then we're going to do 12 single crochets in white. And we're going to change colour on this stitch here. And in this case, our colour change is in the same place as it was on the previous row. So we've just got to pick up the orange yarn from below and complete the stitch. And then finish the rest of the row, which is 9 single crochets in the orange yarn. Chain 1 and turn. For row 11, we're going to start with 8 orange single crochets. On the 8th stitch here, we're going to change colour. So when we've got 2 loops on our hook, we're going to bring the orange yarn to the front and drop it, pick up this white yarn, and then when we do our next white stitch, we need to make sure we're picking up that strand at the back there, and completing our single crochet. And we need to do a total of 12 white single crochets. This is our 12th white single crochet, so we need to do half of the single crochet stitch, drop the white yarn to the front and pick up this orange yarn, and complete the stitch with the orange yarn. And of course, when we do the next stitch, we need to make sure we're picking up that strand at the back. And we're just going to finish off the row in the orange yarn, which should be 8 single crochets. And when we get to the end, we will chain 1 and turn. And row 12 is going to be an exact repeat of the previous row, so we're going to start with 8 single crochets in orange. This colour change is happening at the same place as the colour change on the previous row, so we're just picking up that white yarn and swapping to that. We don't need to carry the yarn across or crochet over any strands. And then we're going to do 12 single crochets in white. And once again, our colour change is happening at the same place as it did on the previous row. So it's just a case of picking up that orange yarn and finishing the stitch. And then crocheting to the end of the row with the orange yarn, which should be 8 single crochets. And then when you get to the end of the row, chain 1 and turn. Onto row 13, and we're going to start with 7 single crochets in orange. So our colour change is happening 1 stitch earlier than the previous row, which means we're going to have to pick up that white yarn from the next stitch over and complete our single crochet with that. And when we do our next stitch, we're going to crochet over that loose strand. We're then going to do 13 white single crochets. And we're going to change colour to orange on this next stitch. And this is in the same place as the colour change on the previous row. So again, no carrying the yarn or crocheting over anything. We're just picking that up and using it. And then we're going to continue finishing the row in orange, which should be 8 single crochets. And at the end of the row, we're going to chain 1 and turn. Now onto row 14, and we're going to start this row with 9 single crochets in orange. As we crochet into this next white stitch, we need to carry that white yarn across with us. And we're only doing half of this stitch because this is the stitch where we change colours. So we're going to bring the orange yarn to the front, gently pull on that white yarn to tighten it, and then finish the stitch with the white yarn. And we need to do a total of 12 single crochets in the white yarn. And then we're going to change to orange yarn, just picking that up from the back and continuing for the rest of the row, which is 7 single crochets, and then we're going to chain 1 and turn at the end. Moving on to row 15, and on this row the colour changes are going to be in the exact same place as the row before, so we're going to do 7 single crochets and then swap to white on the 7th stitch. And then we're going to crochet across to the next colour change, which will be 12 single crochets. And here we will switch to orange, just picking up that orange from the back. And we'll finish off the rest of the row with 9 single crochets in this orange. And then at the end, we will chain 1 and turn. For row 16, we're going to do 9 single crochets in the orange. So we're going to go to the spot where we changed colours on the previous row and change to white at the same spot there. So we're just bringing that orange to the front, picking up that white from the back and continuing with the white. And we're going to do a total of 14 single crochets in the white. When we get to this point here, we're going to start working into orange stitches, so we need to pick up the orange yarn and carry that with us. And then we're going to do our colour change stitch, so we're going to bring that white yarn to the front, gently tug on the orange yarn, and then finish off the stitch in the orange yarn, and then we need to do 5 more single crochets in the orange yarn to finish the row, and then we can chain 1 and turn. Moving on to row 17, we're going to start with 3 single crochets in orange. On that 3rd stitch, we're changing colour, so we need to bring the orange to the front and pick up that white yarn from further down the row, and then complete the stitch with the white yarn. And then we've got 2 stitches where we need to make sure we're crocheting over that loose white strand at the back to hide it. And we want to do a total of 17 single crochets with the white yarn. And at this point we're working into an orange stitch, so we need to make sure we're carrying that orange yarn with us. And this is where we're doing our colour change as well, so we need to bring our white yarn to the front, gently pull on that orange yarn and finish the stitch with the orange yarn. And then we're going to continue working across the row with the orange yarn for a total of 8 single crochets. And then at the end of the row we will chain 1 and turn. Row 18 is where we're going to start using the black yarn, so make sure you've got that handy, but we're going to start with 8 single crochets in orange. And this colour change is happening at the same place as the colour change on the previous row, so we're just picking up that white yarn and finishing the stitch with that. And then we need to do 7 single crochets in white. And on that 7th single crochet, we're going to be switching to black. So we're going to do half of our white single crochet. We're going to grab our black yarn and we're going to complete the stitch with that black yarn. And then we're going to do 1 single crochet in black. And I'm just crocheting over that end as well to secure it in place. And on the 2nd black single crochet, we're going to change colours. So I'm going to bring the black to the front. And I'm going to use a brand new white bobbin. So I've got a small ball wound up here. And I'm going to use that to finish off that stitch. And then I need to do 9 single crochets in white. And again, I'm going to crochet over the white loose end because that's going to help me when I come to weaving it in at the end. And at this point here, I'm working over an orange stitch, so I need to make sure I'm picking up that orange yarn at the back and crocheting over it. And I'm just doing half a single crochet here because I need to finish it with the orange yarn. And then I'm going to finish the row with 2 single crochets in orange. And of course, I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. For row 19, I'm going to start with 2 single crochets in orange, changing colour on that 2nd stitch. So just picking up that white yarn from the back and finishing my single crochet with the white yarn. And then I'm going to do 9 single crochets in the white, and on the 9th stitch I'll be changing back to black. And again, that colour change is happening in the same place, so it is just a case of picking up the yarn from the back and finishing the stitch. And just as with the previous row, I'm doing 2 black single crochets, changing colour on the 2nd one. Finishing that stitch off in the white. And then I'm doing 8 single crochets in white. And at this point I'm working into an orange stitch, so I need to make sure I'm picking up that orange yarn, and I'm only doing half my stitch because I need to change colour here, so I'm bringing my white yarn to the front, gently pulling on that orange yarn and then finishing the stitch with the orange yarn. And then I've got 7 more single crochets to do with the orange yarn to finish off the row. And at this point, because we've finished the mouth, we can cut off the yarn that we've been using for the mouth, which is the black yarn. And we can also cut off this white yarn that we were using for the other half of the ghost, because we'll just be able to continue with the 1 white bobbin for now. And I've actually left these loose ends on the front of my work, which isn't where I want them on the back. So I'm just going to use my crochet hook to pull them to the back of the work out of the way. For row 20, we're going to start with 6 single crochets in orange yarn. And our colour change is happening 1 stitch earlier than on the previous row, so we need to pick up that white yarn from further down. And when we do our first white stitch, we need to make sure we're crocheting over that loose strand. And then we're going to do a total of 16 white single crochets. And at this point we need to change to orange, but we're not going to use the orange that is further down the row. We're actually going to add in a new bobbin, because after we've used this orange, we then need to use white again before we can use that orange at the end of the row. So we're going to use a new bobbin to complete this stitch. Then we're going to do 2 single crochets using this orange. And on the 2nd orange single crochet, we need to change colours. We're going to bring that orange to the front and we're going to add in a new white bobbin. So I'm going to finish that stitch with the new white bobbin, and we're going to do 2 single crochets with this white. And then on the second single crochet, we can switch to the orange that is at the end of the row. And we're going to complete the stitch with that orange. And then we've got 2 more single crochets to do to finish off the row, and then chain 1 and turn. And I know we've only just added in those 2 new bobbins, but we can actually cut them off straight away because we only needed them for that little section there. For row 21, we're going to start with 6 single crochets in orange. And on the 6th stitch, we can change colours by picking up the white yarn directly from the back and finishing our single crochet. We then need to do 3 single crochets in white. And at this point, we need to grab our black yarn again because we need to get started on the eyes. So we're going to do half of our single crochet in white, and then we're going to get our black yarn to finish off that stitch. And then we're going to do 2 single crochets in black, and I'm crocheting over that loose end to secure it in place. And on the second black single crochet, we're going to change to white, but we want to add in a new bobbin. So I'm going to grab a new white bobbin and complete the stitch with that. And then I want to do 2 white single crochets. Again, I'll crochet over that end to secure it in place. And then we'll be switching back to black again. But again, I want to use a new bobbin because I don't want to be carrying that black yarn under the white yarn because it's going to be visible. So I've got a new black bobbin and I'm going to complete my stitch with that. And I'm going to do 2 single crochets with the black yarn. And at that point, I'm going to change back to white. And you guessed it, we're going to need another new white bobbin. So we're going to complete that single crochet with the white yarn. And then we're going to do a total of 8 single crochets in the white yarn. And then we're going to switch to orange. And with the orange, we're going to finish the row with 5 single crochets. And of course, we're going to chain 1 and turn. For row 22, we're going to start with 5 single crochets in orange. So we're just going to go to that same spot on the previous row where we changed colours, and we're going to change to white. And we're going to do 3 single crochets in white. And then we need to change back to orange, which we will need a new bobbin for. So grab another orange bobbin and complete your stitch with that. And then we're going to do 2 single crochets in orange, changing colours on the second stitch. And we're changing back to white again, and we are going to need another white bobbin. I know this probably seems like a lot, but I promise that's the last bobbin we're adding. And this is only going to be for 2 more rows, and then it's going to get much easier. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, don't worry. And we're going to do 3 single crochets with this white yarn. And then we're going to pick up the black yarn from the back and complete the 3rd single crochet with that. And then we're going to do 2 single crochets in black, switching back to white on the 2nd single crochet. And then 2 more single crochets in white, switching back to black on the 2nd single crochet. And then with the black, I'm sure you can guess what we're doing. We're doing 2 single crochets, switching back to white on the 2nd single crochet. And then with the white, we're going to do 3 single crochets. Switching back to orange on the 3rd single crochet. And then we'll finish off the row with 6 orange single crochets and then chain 1 and turn. For row 23, we're going to start with 6 single crochets in orange. We're going to switch back to white on the 6th single crochet, so we're just picking that up from the back and completing the stitch. And we're just going to sort of continue in the pattern. So we're going to work to the black stitches and then we're going to change colour there. So that is 3 single crochets in white. We're going to switch to the black on the 3rd single crochet. And then we're going to do 2 single crochets in black. Switching colour on the 2nd single crochet. And normally I'd bring this black yarn to the front, but because that's the last time I'm going to use it, I'm going to leave it on the back because I want the loose end to be on the back to weave in. So I'm not going to bring that black yarn to the front. I'm going to leave it in the back, but I'm going to continue with my colour change as normal. And then I'm going to do 2 single crochets in the white yarn. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to leave that white yarn in the back because it's the last time I'm going to need it. I'm going to cut it off in just a moment. I'm going to finish the stitch with the black yarn. Do 2 single crochets in black. Again, leaving that black yarn in the back when I do my colour change. Changing back to white. And I'm going to do 3 single crochets in white. Then I'm going to switch to the orange. I am bringing the white to the front this time because I'm going to need that again. But I'm going to finish off the stitch with the orange yarn. And I'm going to do 3 single crochets with the orange. And because I'm working into a white stitch here, I'm going to pick up that white yarn at the back and crochet over it. And again, I'm going to leave this orange in the back because I need to cut it off in just a moment. I'm going to finish the stitch with the white, do 2 single crochets in white, changing back to orange on the 2nd single crochet, leaving that white yarn in the back to cut off in just a moment. And I'm going to finish the row with 5 single crochets in orange, and then I will chain 1 and turn. And at this point I am going to cut off a lot of these yarns. The only ones I'm going to leave are the 2 orange ones on either end and the white one that I've left on the front. And now moving on to row 24, things are going to get a bit easier. So we're going to do 11 single crochets in the orange. As we're working into this white stitch, we want to make sure we're picking up that white yarn. And this is the stitch we're going to change colour, so we're just going to do half of that single crochet, and then we're going to finish the stitch with the white yarn. And then we want to do 11 single crochets in the white yarn. And at this point we want to change back to orange. We can just pick that up from the back and continue crocheting. And we need to do 6 single crochets with the orange to finish off the row. And then we will chain 1 and turn. And for row 25, it's going to be pretty much a reverse of the previous row. So all of our colour changes are going to fall in the same place. So we're going to do 6 single crochets in orange. And then we can change to white, just picking that up from the back here. And then we're doing 11 single crochets in white. And on our 11th single crochet in white, we can change back to orange. And we'll finish off the row with 11 single crochets in orange. And then of course, chain 1 and turn. For row 26, we're going to start with 11 single crochets in orange. And our colour change is falling in the exact same place as the previous row, so we're just going to pick up that white from the back and finish off our stitch, and then we'll continue working for 10 single crochets in white. And on our 10th single crochet, we're going to change colours to orange, so we're going to pick that up from further down the row and then crochet over the loose strand, and we will finish the row off with 7 single crochets in orange. Our little ghost is really coming together now. For row 27, we're going to start with 7 single crochets in orange. On our 7th single crochet, we're going to pick up the white from the back and finish our stitch. Then we're going to do 9 single crochets in white. We're going to change colour on the 9th single crochet, picking up that orange from the next stitch over on the previous row. So making sure we crochet over that loose strand. And we're going to finish off the row with 12 single crochets in orange. For row 28, we're going to start with 13 orange single crochets. And at this point, we're going to start working into white stitches. So we need to make sure we're picking up that white strand from the back as we're crocheting. And we're going to change colour on this stitch. So we're only doing half a single crochet, and then we're going to finish the stitch with the white yarn. And then we'll continue working for a total of 7 single crochets in the white. And then we'll switch back to orange. We're going to pick that up from the next stitch over on the previous row. Again, making sure we crochet over that loose strand. And we want to do a total of 8 single crochets in orange. And then at the end of the row, chain 1 and turn. And now for row 29, which is our last colorwork row, we're going to do 9 single crochets in orange. As we work into the white stitches, make sure you're picking up that white yarn. And we're going to finish off this stitch with the white yarn, and we're going to leave that orange yarn at the back because we're going to need to cut it off in just a moment. But you're then going to do 5 white single crochets. Finishing off your 5th stitch with the orange yarn. Again, leave that white yarn in the back to cut off in just a moment. And finish off the rest of the row with 14 orange single crochets, and then chain 1 and turn. At this point, you can cut off that white and orange yarn that we dropped, just leaving that one that's on your hook at the moment attached to your work. And you're now going to do 3 rows of single crochets in orange. So go ahead and do that and meet me back here, and I'll show you how to finish this off by adding a border. Okay, so this is what your coaster should be looking like, and we're about to add a border. So hopefully you have done a chain 1 and turn, and we're going to start by putting 3 single crochets in this very first stitch. So we're going to put 3 single crochets into the same spot just here. Then we're going to single crochet across the row, just putting 1 single crochet into each stitch until you have 1 stitch left at the end of the row. At the end of the row, you're going to put 3 single crochets in that last stitch. And then you're not going to turn your work, you're going to rotate it so that you continue working down the edge of your work. And you're just going to put 1 single crochet in the end of each row. When you get to the end of that edge, you're going to place 3 single crochets in your first foundation single crochet in this corner here. And then you're going to work 1 single crochet into each of those foundation single crochets until you have 1 remaining at the end. And when you get down to this corner, I'm sure you can figure out what you need to do. You need to put 3 single crochets in that last stitch. And then you'll work back along that last edge, putting 1 single crochet into the end of each row. When you get back up to the top here, you're just going to slip stitch with the first single crochet that you did into that corner. And then you can cut your yarn and fasten off. And we are very nearly done. The only thing left to do is to weave in these ends on the back. To weave them in, you just want to go under a few stitches in 3 different directions. I do have a full tutorial on how to weave in ends on colorwork projects, so feel free to check that out if you need a bit more guidance. Once all your ends are weaved in, you might want to block your project depending on what it's looking like. I decided to steam block mine, and this is how it turned out. I hope you've enjoyed making this project with me. Let me know down in the comments if you want more full-length tutorials like this, and also let me know how your project turned out.